Barrio Love Oldies.com. Órale.
What's up, everybody? It is I, of course, your girl, Miss Crystal Marie from Barrio Love Oldies, and you're back on the Barrio Love Oldie podcast, episode number 24, with none other than Andre Cruz and Chris Lujan. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I am super excited to hear all about you guys.
Absolutely. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. So I want to go right into the interview. And these questions are a little bit different because they're more like personal questions to get to know who you are as an artist, get to know you a little bit more better so that, you know, us as listeners, when we hear, we can connect a little bit better. So it's just kind of to get to know you guys, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You guys down with that?
I'm a little scared, but yeah, let's go.
No, nothing too crazy, nothing too crazy. All right, guys. So our first question, of course, we'll start it off easy. Where are you guys both from, born and raised?
So this is Andre. I am born and raised in Whittier, California. And I am now out here in the Bay Area, California. I've been out here for a while now, and I feel lucky to call both places home.
Nice.
And then this is Chris here. I grew up in the Bay Area. I've bounced around different cities in the Bay Area. I'm still in the Bay Area.
That's so cool. I was telling Chris, I'm a little bit familiar with NorCal because I was living out there for about 6 years in the city of Sacramento. So I'm a little bit familiar, not too much, but I could get around.
Sure.
Yeah, no, shout out Sacramento.
For sure. But it's hot over there as well. I thought I was going to get away from like the heat, but then I was like, bro, the weather's just the same. Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of hot over there too.
yeah,
For sure. It gets real warm out in Sacramento.
Yeah. Well, I want to know, what was your guys' environment like growing up in your guys' area where you guys grew up from?
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you want me to take it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was a skateboarder mostly. Junior high school, I was a skateboard kid, and went around to the various local parks, which there weren't too many back then in the late 80s, early 90s. Skate parks really didn't start popping up everywhere until the 2000s. But yeah, I was on a skateboard. You could find me all over the Bay Area on a skateboard with my friends. And then I started playing music in high school. I was kind of hanging around the metalheads, so they were showing me how to play Metallica tunes and stuff like that. But even back then, I was more into like the scratchy, like funk guitar stuff. And I never really sat there and learned Metallica tunes. I just learned what they showed me, but I was over here trying to play like meters type stuff, but that's my youth. I think I was on a skateboard in my youth.
That's dope. What about you, Andre?
So when I was younger, I had really bad asthma. And so as much as I would love to say I was out there skateboarding or out there doing this and that and the other, I did a lot of reading, a lot of asthma-friendly activities. And then don't laugh at me, Chris. And asthma affects many people across the world. And then as I got older, I joined a choir, and that really allowed me to really just learn how to do these things that I wanted to do. And it's funny, Chris was talking about, learning from the metalheads, but really wanted to do this. I have really always been into like soul and R&B, like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and all that good stuff. And so I have a very vivid memory of being in high school, and I had my CD player that, of course, I used to try to like shove in my back pocket, right? And one of my homies was like, "Yo, what are you listening to?" And like took my headphones, and I was fully listening to Songs in the Key of Life. And he's like, "What is this?" And I was like, I was gonna change it to Dr. Dre in a second after this. And so it was a lot of that when I was a kid, and a real loving family for which I'm very thankful. My mama and all my aunts, my grandma. So.
What kind of music did you guys grow up listening to in your home? Like, what were your parents and your grandparents listening to?
Well, my mom was listening to a lot of R&B, a lot of soul, a lot of uh, Latin artists, so a lot of like Julio Iglesias and Lujan and just a lot of those old names. But then you had your Luther Vandross and your Stevie Wonder, your Marvin Gaye, just kind of living on Motown. And so that was really what I was raised like, that Sunday morning we're cleaning the house kind of music, you know what I'm saying? And so that's what we had a lot of times.
Yeah, my dad was a big blues fan, so there was a lot of blues music going on around. My mom was a big Beatles fan, but we never really listened to the Beatles. She would talk about it. She saw the Beatles live and stuff like that. In my youth, I started buying music really early, and in the like 3rd through 5th grade, I was all about like Run DMC.
Okay.
It was like when Raising Hell and the King of Rock and all of that stuff was coming out, and I was just all about that stuff. So that's blues music. My dad also listened to like big band jazz type stuff. But yeah, I got into hip hop like super early. I didn't really get into like the soul stuff until like later high school years. And not because I didn't like it, I just didn't know of it until then.
Yeah. And how were you introduced to it?
How was I? I think I was like a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. And, they would cover songs by the Meters and Sly and the Family Stone. And so then I just like sought it out through there.
I know I definitely, now I didn't appreciate like jazz or blues when I was younger, but that's definitely something now as an adult, I definitely appreciate it and do not mind having it on my playlist, which I actually have a jazz playlist.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a similar story there. Like I love jazz now. Like I really do. Like I like live jazz. It's I think it's incredible. It's so much fun and you never know what's gonna happen. And of course I have my favorite jazz musicians, my favorite jazz singers. But when I was coming up, one of the other things I wanted to listen to was a lot of smooth jazz. Like your Kenny G and just like all that very chill mall music. Yeah. And I remember when I first moved up to San Francisco, I went to my first jazz club and it was hot and they were just going. And I remember it was like 11 p.m. and my mom goes to sleep at 9. And I called her at 11. I'm like, why didn't you tell me what real jazz was? This is real jazz. I could have been listening to this the whole time. Like, oh man. And she just laughed. She's like, that's all I knew. But no, she really got me started there.
I think for me, jazz is the first section I'll hit in the record store. I'll just go to the jazz section first.
Billie Holiday is my favorite. She's my favorite. I mean, I think maybe for right now, she's my favorite because she's the first one. Her, Nina Simone. So they're my first two that I can say like I can listen to. I haven't even explored more than them two.
Oh, okay. There's so much more.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place to be because you really are just at the tip of that iceberg. And the more you dig, you're just going to hear so much incredible musicianship and vocals. I'm excited. That's cool.
Yeah, those two, out of a lot of the jazz vocalists, the two you named really are they put their emotions forward. You have people like Ella Fitzgerald she has a great instrument with her voice, but I think Nina Simone and Billie Holiday, as far as their emotions, it really comes through in their music.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I think maybe that's why I appreciate it now more as an adult, because that's one thing that even attracts me to soul is like the passion behind the voice, and it's like, you're right, Chris, like when I hear them, it's like I just feel their heart, like the about their sound, and I'm just like, it just pulled me. Like it just pulled me. That's I can't even explain it. It's just like, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, question. Growing up, how did you guys even figure that out? Like that you guys had a talent? Like, did you always sing as a kid, or how'd you discover it?
Speaking for me, I wanted to sing for forever, for honestly as long as I can remember. I just wanted to sing, and I was always singing something. When I was younger, I was like making up little songs just to pass the time, and then as I really began to fall in love with just music in general. I was singing everything. Like you can ask my family, like watching a Disney movie with me when I was like 4, 5, and 6 was not just me singing along to the Jungle Book. It was me singing along and then singing like the little sound effects, like beep bop boop bop bop. Like I was like, that was just, I don't know, just it really stuck with me, and so things really clicked when I was able to join the choir when I was younger, and then I joined a band, and you know, it was your own little run-of-the-mill high school band, but it is one of the things in my life that has always been so completely constant. Like if I'm not performing and singing, I'm singing at home. If I'm not singing at home, I'm, you know, playing guitar and singing, or just it's just kind of always been there for me.
But like, okay, so I could say like I know how to sing, right? I could say like, oh, I could sing and this and that. But we got to get that confirmation, right? Like, all right, Crystal, you know how to sing, and not me just saying that. When did you get that confirmation? Like, bro, you really have a talent there.
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. Like when I was younger, it's hard to talk about, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't like to big up myself or anything like that. But when I was younger, I would get like compliments on my voice and whatnot. But I mean, that's all well and good. I think for me, one of the things that keeps me going is just how, I mean, you were talking about the emotion that comes out in these soul singers' voices, right? And for me, singing and making music is the way that I can best express myself, you know? So we have these songs that we've recorded that truly do get a little bit vulnerable, and not even necessarily in the subject matter, but just in the way that I'm singing, the notes that I'm hitting. Like I can hear a song that I've done and I know what I was going through that day, you know? And so I'm incredibly thankful that there are folks who think I can sing well. You know, I think I'm not too bad. But for me,
but was it like your mom, like a family member, like, oh, mijo, you can sing?
Well, I mean, you gotta remember, I am a single. I am an only child to a single Latin mother. So as much as I love my mama, everything is, ay, mijo, good job, and like I love my mama, but that's the kind of support that I came from which I'm very, very thankful. But like that kind of encouragement to follow my passion and to keep going, and then kind of turning around and being like, oh, I actually like the way that I sound there, you know, and other people being like, we've been trying to tell you, you know. I mean, you can ask Chris how many times I've tried to record something and I'm like, I don't know, and he's like, we're keeping that one. Like, oh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so. It's true. I only pretend to try to sing. I think my talent is in the producer / instrumentalist. So how I started, like I said, you know, the metalheads were the ones who started playing guitar. So I started picking it up at that point. But again, I wasn't a metalhead. And I never sat around and learned other people's music. It was all about trying to write something of my own. And recording started very early as well. It wasn't just, I'm going to write music. It was, I'm going to write and record. It was kind of like a package deal. It kind of all happened at the same time with some friends of mine. And it was always like, back then I would say it was like funky, you know, it was always trying to write real funky stuff. I was in some, you know, small funk bands out of high school. And then it wasn't until I hooked up with Andre that it was like, okay, let's try to step away from the like straight up like funky stuff and let's try to do some more soul type stuff. So I mean, the funky stuff and soul go hand in hand, but dropping the funk part of it and trying to be more soulful kind of happened when me and Andre started working together.
Do you guys want to tell us, how did you guys even meet and even like start collabing? Like, how did that dynamic duo happen?
So Chris, if you don't mind me telling the story, I think it's funny. There was, so this was like long before the pandemic. There was a string of maybe about 2 or 3 months that we just kept running into each other at shows. It was just like, boom, boom, oh, there's Chris, boom, oh, there's Chris, boom, oh, there's Chris. And at the very last one, Chris comes up to me, he's like, well, we need to be friends. And I was like, okay, man, you got it. And and that's kind of how we started talking and just kind of getting to know one another. And then I think our very first collaboration was Victim of Love, right?
Correct.
So I had this dream. I was in another band at the time, and I had this dream of covering Charles Bradley, who was an artist who I just absolutely love, a real big inspiration of mine. May he rest in peace. And he had this song that I just fell in love with called Victim of Love. And I mean, you were talking about like, how did you know when you could sing? I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that I could sing that song outside of my car. Like I would belt it in my car, but I wasn't like taking it to the studio or anything like that. So when it came time for me to be like, all right, let's try to make this happen, I reached out to Chris, and Chris and Joe Bear Magnin, his guitarist that he was working with at the time, really elevated my idea to being just, let's record it in our backyards or our or in our garage or something, to like, let's take it to the studio. And we made a whole music video of it, and I'm really proud of that. And that was the beginning, I think, of Chris and I really trying to make some stuff work here.
Yeah, and that's on YouTube. I would honestly suggest that anyone like go look for it. I think it's just Andre Cruz. Mm-hmm. It might say Andre Cruz, Victim of Love, Charles Bradley, something like that. You'll find it. And that was the first time me and Andre really worked together. I don't even think we rehearsed it, right? It was just, you wanted to do it. We talked about it, and then we met in the studio, I think, right?
Yeah, well, I think we ran through it once in the studio, and and you were like, did you want me to sing the background vocals? I was like, I didn't even think about that. It was such a dream until you were like, let's make it real. And so that was kind of the beginning for me.
I make dreams come true.
Yeah, so talking about that, you're amazing at making music. Like, how did you discover that talent that you have of making beautiful music?
You know, I always was trying to play. I've bounced around from guitar to bass over 30 years, and you know, I just kind of landed on bass as my main instrument. And then the Scone Cash Players were going to come to town. They were signed to Daptone. Adam Scone, fantastic organ player. He played with Sharon Jones, and he's like part of that crew. And he was coming to town, and his guitar player at the time, Jason Joshua, was going to sing some songs. And I had connected with Scone online in the past, and we had played some shows together, like my band opening for his band. And when he asked me to play guitar on this gig for when Jason Joshua was going to sing 3 songs, he didn't want to have to play guitar and sing, so he asked me to play guitar. And I was like, oh man, I haven't played guitar on stage in like a decade, you know? Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be easy, you know? And so I did that gig. I played those 3 songs. And at that point I was like, oh, let me start playing more guitar. And so that's when I really started playing way more guitar, and guitar kind of almost became my main instrument. And it kind of also has to do with my guitar player, who Andre mentioned, Joe Bear Magnin, who's in that Charles Bradley tribute video. He moved to the East Coast. So now all of a sudden I didn't have my guitar player. So it was kind of like up to me to try to figure it all out. And at that point I really started playing way more guitar. And that's what, again, kind of coincided with me and Andre getting together, you know, at the beginning and working it all out. Just been trying to make music a long time.
Now, before you guys hooked up together and started collabing together, you guys were working like on your own projects. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that independently?
I'm trying to let Andre answer first.
Okay.
You can go and answer first, buddy. Go ahead.
I mean, I had a band called the MTET. I mean, I've had many bands throughout the years. The MTET was probably the longest lasting band. And the MTET had played shows with Andre's band that he had at the time. So it wasn't just shows we were running into each other at, but we would play our own shows together. So I was, you know, the MTET was a thing, but I still always was trying to put together what I thought was going to be my own CD or whatever. And I got together with a few guys to record 2 songs for a 45. And we recorded 2 songs. One was called Don't Go Acting a Fool, and one was called Ice Cold. They didn't come out on the same 45. They came out on different records eventually. But the song Don't Go Acting a Fool is the first one that I released under my own name. And that is actually the one that Andre heard and said, oh, I want to work with this guy, and hit me up and said, hey, would you like to produce my EP? So I was working on my own thing, and immediately Andre got involved. So
Wow.
from the get-go.
What did you hear, Andre, that you're like, I want Chris?
Oh man. What a way to put that too.
I'm listening with extra ears.
So like Chris said, his band, the MTET, just soulful and funky as you could possibly want it to be. Shout out to Joe Bear Magnum, shout out to Mike Reed and Gary Pittman. Just a really great workman soul, good stuff. They put out a cover of Redbone by Childish Gambino that was just so soulful and so funky, and they let me sing on that one live, and that was a lot of fun. But then Chris on his own puts out Don't Go Acting a Fool, which if you haven't heard it, if the folks listening haven't heard it, I highly recommend you go give it a listen. It's on the album. It's so sweet and so
rich.
It's just so rich, and it's just the sound is just so there. And I mean, I challenge any musician, any singer to listen to that and not be like, oh, let me see what Chris Lujan's about,
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I heard that, and I had a song in my head for a minute, and I just wasn't sure how to get it out. So when I heard Don't Go Acting a Fool, I was like, I think Chris Lujan's the guy. So we met up, we talked about my ideas, we sent my idea kind of back and forth, and that song ended up being my very first single, Good to Be Home. And that single, Good to Be Home, we put it out on a 45, and it sold out like that,
Yeah.
And that's not just the lyrics, that's not just the singing, that's absolutely the instrumentation and production that Chris brought to it. And so I think, speaking personally, once we put that together, it was kind of like, oh, this is a thing, we have something,
Andre, maybe we should get together and talk about the good old days more often, because this feels good. A lot of what we do now is we get together and we're like, okay, what's next? What are we gonna do? Let's look at the calendar. Let's talk. It's so. I don't want to say it's all business, but there is definitely a lot of, okay, what's next? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna plan here?
Yeah.
Looking back at how we got together, it was awesome. We had some great. Not that we don't have great times now, but if you look back, we were discovering this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not to cut you out of the conversation here, but that's one of the things that I think that we really had and are trying to get back to is not putting rules on what we do.
Yeah.
Right? I would sing something, I like that. You would play something, I like that. Or, hey, what about this? What about this? And it would eventually turn into something that we were really excited about. And then you would just produce the hell out of it. And then I remember we would both sit back and just be like, yo, and those are good days, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make sure we don't get jaded.
Agreed. Sorry,
That
back to the
concludes the
podcast.
therapy. That concludes therapy session. Barrio Lodi therapy session.
Yo, what do you charge for therapy?
Yeah.
Just kidding, guys. That's so dope. I love hearing that because I think it's very rare to find somebody that you have good chemistry with in your field, because that makes a big difference, right? Just to be somewhere with someone that understands you, that here's what your idea and can take it there, right? We can have an idea and you just hand it off, and they know exactly how to do it, what to do with it. Like, that's a beautiful thing. So that's awesome that you guys both share that together. Now, I know one of the beautiful things that you guys have came out together with is your guys' new album. You guys want to talk about that?
Heart Full of Love?
Yes, The Heart Full of Love.
Sure. So Heart Full of Love started as just I think it started with maybe a small handful of covers, right? And I think we had maybe 2 or 3, and it kind of grew from there. What do you remember, Chris?
Well, I remember my buddy from Texas, Nick Diaz, and talking to him about, see, this is where it gets into like the business stuff and the planning stuff instead of the, youthful fun of things. This is where Nick is like, oh, I hear that you're supposed to be releasing a song every 6 weeks, and you could have like your originals, but then every once in a while you need to like have a cover ready to go to just drop when you so we were working on those covers, like, oh, let's just like have some covers that we could drop every once in a while when we have a hole in the release schedule. And then all of a sudden it was like, you know what? We already have like 7 songs, 7 covers. We just throw 3 more in here and we can have a whole album of covers. So that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't like we were planning it, but all of a sudden we had a handful of tunes, the bulk, like more than half of an album's worth. And it was like, well, let's just throw a few more in here, and then we got a whole album. So that's how that album happened. The first album, The Real Thing, is all originals, and then this one is all covers.
That's awesome. 2 of the songs that you guys covered, Send My Baby Back.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard it, I was like, you guys killed it. I mean,
thank you.
Sure.
That's my mama's favorite.
Really?
Yeah, she loves it.
Oh, I love it. And Can I Call You Rose, that you guys covered by the Secret Souls. When I heard that, I was like, wait, hold up, what?
Yeah, that one, back in 2020, when all of the Penrose, 45s dropped, if you remember, they released 5 45 all at once. And, you could buy them as a pack, and I bought all 5 of them. And, I think people go through their favorites of like, oh, I like the Sincere's record the best. And then it's like, oh, no, I like the Alton's record the best. And I was just in some Sacred Souls phase, and I listened to Can I Call You Rose so many times and Andre loves to do like rocksteady reggae stuff. But I listened to it so many times that I could all of a sudden hear how I would want it to be as a reggae tune. And I kind of like laid it out, recorded it, and I think I must have recorded a demo, and like I probably sang it so that Andre could hear how I wanted it done. Because the Sacred Souls is a 6/8 like slow ballad, and I turned it into this 4/4 reggae thing. So I think it might have taken some, I don't want to say convincing, but some like twisting of Andre's brain to wrap his head around how I was hearing it. But yeah, that was just me listening to that song so many times that I like, it was like I had internalized it almost and then spit it out as something else.
See, it's funny that you say that, because I remember the recording session. So the recording session for Can I Call You Rose and the recording session for I think Que Sera Sera, which is the last song on the album, both of those went by like that. And I remember I went into your spot, I went to the studio, and you're like, all right, let's record this thing. And I went in there, and I think I had it in maybe 2 passes. And you're like, cool, we're done. I was like, we're done? Like, don't you want me to do it again? You're like, nah, dog, that was it. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And that was that.
But I do think I must have sent you a demo of me singing it, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like trying to get the timing right, changing the time signature and stuff. Yeah.
That's so awesome. What inspired you to take it like reggae style?
Andre, for his EP, we were working on a couple reggae tunes. So we were like right in the thick of like working on his reggae tunes. And so, I just was like, for some reason, I just heard it in my head one day and was like, okay, let me figure this out,
Oh my God. It's like super different, but I love it. It's like super Cali vibes.
No, thank you so much. I'm glad you dig it.
For
I
sure.
gotta say real quick, we after we finished it, we sent it to the Sacred Souls, so we know they took a listen. They had nothing but great things to say. Shortly after that, we opened for them in Santa Cruz at Mo's Alley, and I think we joked on the way like, "Are we gonna play it? No, we're not gonna play their current hit in front of them." And then we got into the green room, and they were like, "Yo, are you gonna play that song?" And we're like, "Absolutely, I'm not gonna play your hit in front of you."
Yeah, well,
And,
we didn't even like have it rehearsed because we were like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
And then, as a black man with dreadlocks, singing that song, and the lead singer of the Sacred Soul, the black man with dreadlocks, I cannot tell you how many times people have come up and been like, "Yo, you're in the Sacred Souls too, right?" And I'm like, "Nah, like there's a lot of us. Like there's, we all be doing things."
Yeah,
So,
for sure. You're like, he's not the only one with dreads.
exactly.
That's what I love about your guys' creativity is that you guys aren't afraid to like step outside, step out of the box to I mean, when I heard it, I was like, dude, this is so dope. Like, who thought of this? Like, who? What? Like, reggae? Like, other people would have been scared, but you're like, hey, I'm gonna take it there, So that's so dope. Thank you for doing that. As a listener, I'm thanking you. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you for the compliment.
You want to talk about some of the artists you guys have collabed with?
Yeah, Ray Hastildo, he plays with everybody. He plays with the Black Keys. There's a female artist out there called Yola. But yeah, Ray is an amazing keyboard player. I was in a band with him like 15 years ago before he left the Bay Area. And we've been sending him, I would say, the bulk of our music to add organ to, or, keyboards, Mellotron. Robert Walter, amazing organ player, is on the first two songs off of our first album, The Real Thing. He played on My Back Hurts and Somewhere Else.
Yeah, he just got finished up with a tour with The Who, right?
With Roger Waters.
Roger Waters, yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really get any bigger than that as far as Pink Floyd. It doesn't get any bigger than that when it comes to like, rock stardom. But yeah, we've got, like Rob Dellinger, who's a trumpet player, is on a lot of our stuff. Matt Morris is a saxophone player. He's on like the bulk of our stuff.
He's from the English Beat. We've worked with, not to cut you off there, Chris.
Yeah, go for it.
But we have worked now on 2 songs with Jimmy James, an incredible guitar player out of Seattle. He's working on tracks with the Monophonics and Parlor Greens and the True Loves, you name it, he's been there. We have a featured vocalist on a couple of our tracks, Noelle Glory. She's an incredible vocalist. Then, of course, you have Mike Reed, who's been drumming on most, if not all, of our stuff, and he's just absolutely phenomenal. So we've collaborated with some really, really phenomenal musicians to get this sound going.
Yeah, Adam Scone, who I mentioned earlier, is on New Year's Day, which is on the Real Thing album, but he's also on an upcoming song, that Andre mentioned with Jimmy James. So we definitely have some heavy hitters on the recordings and in the live band. Yeah.
You guys want to name some of the artists you guys have worked with?
I'm currently working with Steady 45, so I've recorded with the Steady 45s. I know that Chris and I have performed with, Lee Fields, the Sacred Souls. We just did a show down in Los Angeles with Joey Quinones, Kelly Finnegan, and then backing him was the Sinceres and the Altons. One of our very first shows was opening for Los Yesterdays. The Illusions, Maria Sanchez. There's been some really, really incredible musicians. Adrian Carmine,
Trish
Toledo. I feel very lucky that even in our short time in the soul scene as a band, we have worked with what I consider to be some of the top bands out there really pushing this sound forward.
On my own, I have like a instrumental, like hip hop type of thing called Life of Grime. I'm just basically I'm trying to do music full time, so I'm just trying to work with as many people as possible. Today I had a horn session for Cafe Canela, who I know you interviewed a while back. I just laid some horns on one of his songs for him.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm just trying to do as much music as possible. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Do you guys have any projects you guys are working on right now? Anything upcoming? Anything new coming up?
Definitely. So we have been working on tracks upon tracks upon
Yeah.
tracks for a while now, and shout out one time to Industry Music Group, the label that we've been working with. And so those will be coming out in the not too distant future. We have a brand new song coming out on October 16th. I was so excited to put in some work on a couple of tracks in Spanish. So y'all can look forward to we recorded the song The Real Thing in Spanish, translated that thanks to our homie Adrian Carmine. There's also a band from Cuba called Los Zafiros. They were popular, I think, in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, and they have been on my mind for over a decade. And Chris and I finally covered one of their songs. I'm really excited to share that with the world. And then in addition to that, Chris and I are finally working on putting the finishing touches on my solo stuff, which has gone from an EP to a full LP. And so I'm really hoping we can get that wrapped up before the end of the year, and then maybe that will be pressed and ready to go by next year. So
yeah, keep an eye out, because there's, who knows when people will listen to this. They could listen to this a year from now, 2 years from now. There's a steady stream of releases coming out over the next few years. Like it really seems like every other month we should have a song or two coming out. So, visit the Spotifys and the Apple Musics and the YouTubes, because there's going to be a lot of music dropping.
What inspires you guys to continue to create music, and the music that you guys create? Like, the times when you get creators block, it happens, right? Sometimes we're just like on the go, and sometimes we get like, we can't think of anything new. What motivates you to continue on no matter what happens, to continue to make the music that you do?
That's a really good question. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, I'm waiting for Andre to answer.
All right. Well, speaking personally, writer's block, it's absolutely a thing. It absolutely happens. And I think that there's a couple of different ways that I try to get through it. And I feel very lucky to have worked with some really amazing musicians that I can call friends. And one of my musician homies that challenges me in the best possible way, his name is Stevie Utstein. His big thing is, don't overthink it. Just do it. Just write it. Just write it out and make it happen, and it'll all come together. Now for me, because I'm the singer-songwriter, I'm like super precioso with my lyrics and stuff, like, oh no, it's gonna be perfect. But sometimes it's like, man, just get it out. Just like put it all on the page, finish the song, and then walk away. Because I know that there are some people that really need to keep their nose to the grindstone to get it all out, and God bless them truly. But for me, if I do that, at a certain point, what I'm looking at doesn't look like anything. So if I just get it out, walk away, clear my mind, maybe listen to something else, or don't listen to anything, I can come back with a clear mind, and that'll be helpful. Another thing that's helpful too is just collaborating with Chris and being like, yo, this is where I'm at. I'll bring in half a song. I'm having a hard time figuring out where it goes, and then him and I can like throw ideas back and forth, and that's been really helpful too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, one of the things, I guess, even though my tastes are very, like, it's weird. I do listen to a lot of jazz, like I mentioned, a lot of soul. So, but even though I listen to various genres, for some reason, I feel like my tastes are very narrow. Like, I have a very specific thing that I like. But every once in a while, I'll venture out and I'll listen to something different. Like, for instance, there was a band that on Spotify, you get the playlists that they put together for you, And so on one of these playlists was a band called Drug Dealer. And they're more of like a rock band, but I really gravitated to a few of their songs. And I listened to their whole catalog, and out of their whole 3-album catalog, there were 4 songs that I really loved.
Wow.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to write. I can't remember exactly how I put it to Andre, but I was like, I want to write songs like these, but the soul versions of these, or something like that. And so I kind of took that vibe and like kind of how like you say I did like the Can I Call You Rose and put the reggae thing on it. I took
Mhm.
their like rock vibe and kind of put the soul thing on it. And so I guess, part of it is listening to other music and like taking things that you like from it. I try not to write the same song all the time, but sometimes you find yourself playing the same chords and maybe you don't even realize it until later. All of a sudden you have like 3 songs that have the same chord structure. But trying to break out of it sometimes helps with writer's block, I think. Or, what you can do is you can take something that you've done before and like play with it and create something new with it. You don't have to just write wholly from, the air. You could steal stuff that you yourself have done in the past and tweak it, I guess that's
Yeah.
how I try to break out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate, I think, to both, right? Like for myself, it happens to me. I get creator's block. Sometimes I can't think of like new stuff but I feel like I just step away, for a minute. Like how you were saying, like step away from my usual. Then when I come back refreshed
Yeah.
with new ideas. And sometimes it's good to just take a little break.
Yeah, and I guess part of it is not forcing it.
Yeah,
because I think
sure.
if you force it, you're probably not ultimately not going to be happy with what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, do you guys have anything that you guys want to share? Anything exciting that you guys have coming up?
Well, we have a slate of shows coming up. I know this is dropping on the 13th, right? We've got some stuff. If people listen to it right away, we're going to be at the 4-Star Theater in San Francisco on October 25th. We're going to be at the Stowaway in Los Angeles on October 26th. And we're going to be at the Oldies Lounge, which Andre mentioned, Industry Music Group. That's the lounge that they just opened. DJ Cazell just opened the Oldies Lounge. We're going to be there doing a duo performance on October 27th with Latasha Lee. She's the headliner there, and we're going to be doing a duo set before her. Again, there's lots and lots of music coming out, so keep your eyes and ears open.
And just one more thing that I wanted to mention. Number one, so in addition to all those shows going on, we also are going back to San Jose on November 8th. We're going to be at the break room down there. The community in San Jose has been so incredibly supportive, and they really mean the whole wide world to us. So if anybody out there lives in San Jose, lives near San Jose, please come on through. And we just want to thank you at Barrio Love Oldies for having us and for talking with us. It really means a whole lot to us. I'm excited to share this with all the folks.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It's definitely been an honor to have you guys on. I know I definitely feel a lot more connected to you guys because I love your guys' music, but just being able to talk to you guys, I just feel so much more connected. And that's what I could only hope that our listeners take away from this, that when they hear your music, they can connect with you and say, hey, that's Chris, the one that was little Skeeter. Hey, there's Andre from, that's what I hope that everybody
There's Andre with his asthma problems.
Doing asthma-friendly activities.
I would just like to shout out a couple people who I feel like have really helped us along the way.
Yes.
Angela at Hello Stranger has been in our corner since day one.
Yes.
As well as Wax Villain, who I know was your latest guest on your show.
It was.
He helped us out a whole lot. Again, Cazell at Industry Music Group. Those are the 3 people I would just love to shout out.
Do you guys have any advice for maybe somebody that's listening that may be like going through something, right? That maybe is just hearing this for distraction because they're, I don't know, going through a hard time. Any advice for somebody listening that may be going through some hard times?
I have a couple of thoughts when it comes to that. Number one, I find that most people who feel alone are rarely ever alone. We never know who's in our corner until we reach out and ask, right? So if you're really having a hard time, I promise you there are folks out there that care, that want to offer you that support, that like, and that support can just look like, yo, homie, how's it going? How was your day today? You know, and if you're unable to find that person, follow us on Instagram and shoot us a message. We will be that people. Those people feel like true. Like in all seriousness, one of the things that means the whole wide world to me is we've had a couple of people reach out to us and just say what our music has meant to them in their hard times, and that just shows how important art is when you're going through it. So, you know, I would say reach out to somebody. Let them know what you're looking for, what you need. Go and check out some art, whether that be music or a movie or some, you know, actual like some painting, like some artwork. You know, go and check out something creative, and yeah, you're not alone.
I guess for me, you know, part of it is that, you know, from an artist perspective to other artists, there's room for everybody. You know, don't worry about, you know. Clearly everyone wants their own sound, but if you do something that sounds like somebody else, like there's room for you also to be an artist out there. And if you're having writer's block, you know, back to that, or if you're working on something and it's driving you crazy because you just can't get it right, don't worry about trying to make it perfect. You know, you need to have some scratches and, you know, some scars on your art. You know, if it's not going to hit as much if it's perfect. You know, we're not striving for perfection. We always want the human element in there. And also, you have to, as an artist, you need to finish something. You know, and like I said, you don't have to get it to the point where it's perfect, but you need to get it to the point where you've released it into the world. We're not striving to get awards, but I think the best analogy would be no one has won an award for something that they never finished. You know, you have to put it out there. You know, you can't just be like an artist with like this collection of songs that you want the world to hear, but you know, you're never going to finish them. You're never going to put them out. You have to just push through it all and release it. You know, it's got to come out for the world to hear.
Like you were mentioning, what pushes you when you have writer's block, or how did you know when you could sing or things like that. One of the things I think about is a quote that I read that just said like somebody needs the art that you're making, you know. And so I feel very lucky that I get to work with Chris to make music that I know that I would want to hear, and then when my solo stuff comes out, I am making stuff that Baby Andre would have been so excited about. You know, yes, it is soul, but it's also got some soul. It's got some rock steady and reggae. It's got some rock on it. It's got some blues on it. You know, it's got stuff that little 10-year-old, 13-year-old Andre, who's feeling out of place because I love soul music, but I also love rock and roll, would hear and be like, somebody gets it. Somebody understands where I'm coming from, you know? And so I truly believe that somebody needs the art that you're making. So please make that art, do that thing.
For sure, because nobody can do it like you, right?
Exactly.
Nobody can do it like you. And that's what I always tell, you know, there could be there's many artists, but nobody does it like you. It's your idea, it's your vision, it's your passion. That's the idea that's coming to your head. Execute, because I can't do it like you. So
you never know who you're going to inspire, right?
Exactly. Well, I think we had therapy. I think we had church.
Yeah. Church.
I think this was a great interview.
Yo, thank you again so much for having us.
So awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Any last words before we go?
Just thank y'all so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of the soul music scene. Please continue to go and support live music. We need you more than you could possibly know. We love all of you. We really do.
Yeah, keep an eye out for more music.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Where can
absolutely.
we
Thank you.
find you? I know you guys are on Instagram. Where else are you guys at?
You can find us on Instagram at Andre Cruz and Chris Lujan. You can find us on Facebook, Andre Cruz and Chris Lujan. We're streaming on all of the sites. You know, you search Andre Cruz, ANDRECRUZ, or Chris Lujan, CHRISLUJAN. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's right. I've
Correct.
literally never spelled his name out loud before. And you will be able to find us on any of the streaming services, YouTube, what have you. Or
Yeah.
buy a ticket and come see us live. We would really love to meet all of you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, everything that Andre said. We also have our own individual pages, but yeah, follow all three. Follow Andre Cruz Music, follow CR Lujan, which is me, follow Andre Cruz and Chris Lujan. You'll find all of the stuff there.
Awesome. And I'm going to be sure to post your guys' dates coming up, because if you're
that's
watching, we definitely want you guys out there to show love and support. So I want to definitely have those dates available for our listeners. Guys, that does conclude episode number 24 right here on the Barrio Love OD podcast with none other than Chris Lujan and Andre Cruz. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. And we will catch you guys on the flip side.
All right, thank
so
you.
much. Take good care.